Well, lots of talk over the past few years of defunding the police. Tonight, West Hollywood has done it, voting to reduce the number of armed deputies and using the money it saved to hire unarmed security patrol.
A bit of confusion. People were saying they were going to lose 5 deputies, then 4. Let me explain. In 6 months, the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station will lose 2 deputies. They will lose 3 more 6 months after that. But a deputy will be reinstated in what they call the entertainment policing team. So the net loss really is 4 deputies. Watch.
It's a bad move.
This area needs to be safe. It's not safe anymore.
West Hollywood business owners, not the only ones questioning the city council's reallocation of sheriff money to the block-by-block unarmed blue-shirted security ambassadors program.
Honestly, Christina, we actually increased the public funding for our community safety division because we added 30 block-by-block ambassadors to patrol our residential streets.
But the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station will lose 4 deputies, which concern neighborhood watch groups, citing the 137% increase in crime from last year.
People don't feel safe, and we wanted the sheriff's budget to be maintained or potentially even increased.
He brings up how pedestrians are being targeted after leaving restaurants in the city and the uptick in store heights. Here, surveillance video of a robbery at Giorgiano's fine jewelry and watches just a few days ago.
At night is different street. And now that the bar is going to be open till 4 o'clock.
West Hollywood approving the late bar program pending state approval. At the same meeting, they cut the deputy budget, which worries the owner of the block party, smack in the middle of 2 bars.
By defunding the police, you're not planning for extended bar hours. The block by block is good for certain things. But when it comes to breaking up fights, when it comes to knives at night, defund the police now? I mean, it's the worst time to defund the police.
Sheriff Alex Villanueva responding to losing the 4 deputies at the West Hollywood station by saying
they want to experiment with your public safety. And so they might want to start reimagining another line of work than being elected officials if they're not going to represent the wishes of their own constituents.
Now, a lot of the constituents we talked to seem to have preferred, they like the idea of the ambassadors. They really wanted to see more of them, but I think they would have preferred to wait a little bit to see how that worked out before removing deputy sheriffs. We'll have to see what happens. I'm Christina Gonzalez, live in West Hollywood. Back to you in the studio.
Well then, yeah, that doesn't seem very good. As you can see, the people are obviously outraged. And, yeah, that just seemed super great. But before I get into the actual article in itself, here's the thing. You guys voted for this, by the way. I'm not quite sure what else to really say, because you guys complain about it, but you voted for it. I mean, it's like you people are constantly have a mental illness, or you constantly are just too stupid to recognize on who you vote for. So you just vote for these people, and then you expect them to not go for whatever this insanity is. So again, this is your fault. Again, over and over again, it is the Los Angeles Californians just constantly voting for fucking these woke people, and this is what you get. I don't really feel sorry for them because they get what they get for voting for these insane people. Like, I don't want to live here because you guys are the ones who are voting these people in. Now, I can understand your frustration and your concern about, these people, about, losing your armed policeman and stuff like that, which I'm on the teeter pot of pretty much saying I don't know if we even want police at this point, just because of the fact that, like, the way that the Uvalde shooting happened and how police are constantly hurting our rights and stuff and just arresting people unconstitutionally and shit. Like, I don't know if I really want a police force that does that, which is why I keep on saying that I personally think that our police force across the country needs to be reformed. Even the one in Texas, especially the one in Texas, because the one in Texas is just completely, it was completely asinine. But again, again, it's hard for me to feel sympathy for people that actively cause their own harm, and that they voted for these people in. It's different, say for instance, that you vote these people in, right? And then you were tricked or didn't know that what they were going to do. That's different compared to you actively knowing what they advocate for, and this is what they do. So I mean, at the end of the day, this is kind of your fault. Yeah, we can go back in hindsight, of course, guys, and say like, okay, well, maybe they were tricked. Well, California's been a blue state for many years, for many decades now, right? So we can't really use that philosophy here because they constantly vote for blue and Democratic people, and that's the people's fault. And I have never voted blue. I've probably only voted 2 or 3 times at the most in my lifetime, and one time I just voted for whatever my parents voted for because I didn't really care about politics or understood politics or really didn't know what side of the aisle I was on. I believed what I believed, and I still do today. And the second time I only voted for, again, I still wasn't really in politics, and I really only voted for, I voted for Trump that year because I did not want a World War III, and I was told that Hillary was going to lead us to World War III, so I actively voted for Trump because of that, and we got Trump. So I was happy in the fact that that we avoided World War III because this woman was going to cause us to get into it. And now I vote red only because right now the red is seemingly being less corrupt, less terrible. Of course, we have like 14 of them that are really corrupt, but the rest seems less terrible. However, again, the one guy was saying on the actual video on TikTok, or not TikTok, but Twitter, is that the Republicans don't do anything, and I agree, they don't do anything, and I think that's what we want them to do, is to actually do something. And I think coming this November, if they win the actual spots and stuff, hopefully they will do something, because we want them to do something. And if they don't do anything, I think you lose votes off that, because you lose the faith and trust of the people, and you don't really it's like, and then you don't really you don't really get voters in the long term. You lose voters in the long term. So early term, yeah, you'll get voters because they want to switch, but in the long term, you won't keep those voters if you don't keep trying to do things. This is the reason why I think the Democrats have become so powerful, is because they do on what they say. So people vote on the Democrats because they do what they say. Maybe even if they don't really go ideology wise with them. That could definitely be the truth there. Whereas the Republicans, they say a lot, but they don't do what they say. So that's the problem I think we have with it in general with these type of parties. And Republicans, I'm telling you right now, you have to do things. You have to change it. Otherwise, you're going to lose all the voters that are potentially here. Do something, help the people, and the people will help you. All right, guys, I have spoken way too long on this, so I'm going to go directly into the video article. West Hollywood votes to defund Sheriff's Department despite soaring crime. West Hollywood has voted to slash law enforcement funding, leaving the California city famous for its bustling Sunset Strip nightlife destination with up to 5 fewer deputies on patrol, despite skyrocketing crime rates in the area. The council passed the budget with 3 to 2 vote Monday, with Mayor Lauren Meister, Councilman, and John Erickson voting against it, reported WeWho.com. Meanwhile, the West Hollywood Council approved keeping bars open until 4 a.m. and increased funding for a Russian arts festival. The vote came just 3 months after Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reported that crime in West Hollywood jumped a startling 130% in February 2022 compared to the same time last year. With a public safety crisis in residents, businesses, and tourists expecting us to deliver, I do not think this approach, well timed out, would help the community achieve our goals of creating a safer West Hollywood. Erickson wrote in a tweet explaining why he voted to reject the budget. And I agree, I don't think it is. See, here's the thing here, is that these blue shirts, or these blue shirts ambassadors or whatever, unarmed, are going to get killed. or either seriously hurt, and that's the problem here. Because here's the thing: the people that they'll be trying to deal with or stop are going to have weapons. Okay, the people that are going to try to stop are going to have weapons, and they're not going to have weapons, and this is going to get them killed. I'm actually very scared for their lives because people will get guns illegally, like they always do, and they'll have knives and weapons, and these ambassadors are not going to be able to do anything. I actually fear for their lives because the crime is going to skyrocket again, and there's just going to be nothing to stop these people from causing mayhem at all. It's just going to be a huge issue, and I feel for the ambassadors, and I feel for every person that didn't vote for this. But again, I feel the worst for the ambassadors. I do, because they're assigned a job that is incredibly dangerous and is going to keep on getting dangerous until we see fit, until time tells. I don't know how dangerous it's going to get, but it's going to get more dangerous. Tuesday's council vote means that in the next 2 fiscal years, funds that were meant to pay the salaries of 5 sheriff deputies will be funneled and sent to the city's block-by-block program, which provides unarmed security ambassadors. Prioritizing people's safety doesn't mean people with badges and guns on the street, Council Member Lindsay P. Harvath said during the meeting. We had to find another way to keep our residents safe in a way that is affordable. Under the new budget, the first 2 deputies will be removed in 6 months, and 3 more will follow 6 months after that. But an entertainment policing team will be restored, which means that within 6 months you'll see a huge spike in crime. Now, see, here's the thing: you probably won't see it right now because it won't come into effect because people are going to be, because the criminals are going to wait the 6 months. Are going to wait the 6 months for those people to be removed, and then they're going to go into full effect. And then after 3 more months after those 6 months. After the extra 6 months, which is pretty much a full year, you'll see a way bigger spike in crime than you would have for the previous 6 months. So say for instance, that crime spike that happens the first 6 months after the first few deputies are removed, you'll see a spike in crime. But the 6 months after that, that percentage of actual crime will spike even bigger because all the deputies and everything that is supposed to be protecting the people or whatever is essentially gone, and you have unarmed people taking over, and that just incredibly increases the crime because the criminals are not going to care. Master, a Democrat, has been a vocal opponent of reducing the number of deputies patrolling city streets, and many local business owners and residents also have expressed serious concerns about public safety. I'm not going to vote for the budget if we cut the sheriff's funds, Master said. First of all, nobody has the gun problem that we have in this country. You can't expect us to have a public safety team where most of the people aren't armed in order to defend our citizens. Mayor Pro Temi Seppi Shine countered by saying that the 30 safety ambassadors who will be taking over patrol deputies are more for the buck than sheriff's deputies. This guy says, with a public safety crisis and residents, businesses, and tourists expecting us to deliver, I do not think this approach will help the community achieve goals against safer West Hollywood. Reimagining policies means reallocating funding. You can't just say it without actually doing it, period, she said. So that's the full case. People are all talking about in the comments here. I'm all for defunding the well-earned security teams that put woke politicians employed to defend themselves, while the common folk are left vulnerable to soft on crime policies. Remove all the police and watch how fast vigilantes rise up to clean up the town. Do it everywhere. Criminals need to be afraid of something, and it certainly isn't cops, especially when there aren't any consequences for their actions. Vigilantism will never happen in CA. The citizenry has been conditioned to accept and cower in a civil unrest, and the 2020-21 riots prove that fact. West Hollywood is too saturated with docile tutti fruttis who would suffer shortness of breath if they were told they were bad oyster plots away. Little animals they ain't. Why not just replace the entire force with social workers, etc. stuff, all that stuff, right? Let me counter this one comment though, saying people won't do it. I would agree with you, but when push comes to shove, guys, people are really gonna have to are really gonna do it. I mean, if you even have people specifically going for already going about this in West Hollywood, I wouldn't see how you want to have some type of vigilantism where they need to keep their family safe. It's not really protecting other people. It's protecting their families. Like, that's just the true reality. And I think also at that time as well is that these people, if they can't buy a weapon or whatever, they'll illegally get a weapon to protect their families. And I think that's what the Hollywood doesn't really understand here. Well, guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.